Modern history and geopolitics can be weird and difficult to talk about because people are still very sensitive when it comes to the events and details we discuss. So instead, we're gonna talk about something else. Hey guys, this video is gonna be about puppies, everyone's favorite subject. So puppies are basically dogs that are still kids, but they're not kids because they're dogs, right? But they're really small and harmless and stuff, so yeah, that's what we're gonna be talking about in this video, and definitely not some horrific war that's killing thousands of people. Okay, so the algorithm's probably not going to be that pissed now, so let's finally talk about this video's topic. The history of the IMS is often traced back to 1999, with the founding of the Jama'at al-Tawhid wal-Jihad, or Group of Monotheism and Jihad, a pretty forgettable Salafist group in Jordan founded by veteran Mujahideen from the Soviet-Afghan War. Then it all starts in 2003 with the American invasion of Iraq. Saddam's regime is toppled and replaced by an unstable and unpopular sort of democratic regime and American occupiers. This power void left by Saddam's ousting and the hatred for foreign invaders led to the creation of multiple guerrilla groups that would contribute to anarchy in the previously stable Iraq. The Jama'at declared support for the insurrectionists and formed an alliance with the international organization that I'm gonna have to call AQ, and became known as AQ in Iraq, or simply AQI. The IMS as we know them began way back in the early 2000s as a group named Jaish al-Taifa al-Mansura, which roughly translates to Army Division of the Victorious. This group is really mysterious and nobody even knows where they came from or when they were founded, but we do know that they were led by this man named Abu Umar al-Baghdadi. But there's a small problem here. Al-Baghdadi may not even be real. According to the US military and the Iraqi branch of Hamas, al-Mansura was just another division of AQI, and that al-Baghdadi was just a character created by AQ to make it seem like the group was actually ran by Iraqis and not foreigners. The insurrectionists would see moderate success in Iraq, as although they would fail to topple the Iraqi government, they would inflict heavy casualties at American troops through ambushes, pipe bombs, and guerrilla fighting, most notably in their victory in the widely documented First Battle of Fallujah. In 2006, AQI, al-Mansura, and other jihadist groups would form the Mujahideen Shura Council, an alliance/umbrella organization with the intent of facilitating collaboration between jihadist groups in Iraq. In October of that same year, they would announce the establishment of a state that is Islamic, an emirate led by al-Baghdadi, with the intent of not only expelling Americans from Iraq, but unifying all Muslim nations into one caliphate ruled by Sharia law. The IMS at this point was already the strongest jihadist group militia in Iraq, holding numerous outposts and cities throughout the country, such as Mosul and Bakuba. But it's very difficult, if not outright impossible, for one to visualize that on a map, due to the decentralized and guerrilla nature of the group at this point. They would, however, become infamous due to their terror tactics. You see, they wouldn't just target military outposts and bases or whatever, they would go out of their way to target civilians with the intent of striking fear and nothing else. The United States would respond to this increase in violent activities by, and I kid you fucking not, arming more militias to beat this militia that was also funded by them in the past back in the Soviet-Afghan War. This, however, would actually work for the time, and IMS numbers would grow smaller and smaller, with them losing strongholds and officers left and right. And in 2010, al-Baghdadi, the guy that supposedly didn't exist, would be killed by US and Iraqi troops alongside other leadership figures. Despite these massive losses, the IMS was still kicking and announced a new leader named Ibrahim al-Badri, mostly known by his war name Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. The IMS would also expand its network beyond Iraq and would establish cells throughout countries like Jordan, Libya, and of course, Syria. When the Syrian Civil War kicked off, IMS created an affiliate group named the Al-Nusra Front, which quickly became one of the largest and most powerful factions within the Syrian opposition. Then you know what happens if you watched my Syria video, and in 2013, when the opposition reaches its strongest point in the history of the war, the IMS announces that they would be officially unifying with Al-Nusra. Something that split the movement in two, as some Al-Nusra fighters wanted to unify with IMS and others didn't. Regardless, the IMS would announce its claims in Syria, launching offensives on territories held by both Syrian and government forces. The IMS's offensives surprised the Free Syrian Army's forces. The jihadists took control of many settlements in the east bank of the Euphrates, as well as numerous outposts in northern Syria. And many of said settlements had a considerable population for the IMS to recruit from. This would lead to a vicious cycle of conquest, where the IMS captures territory, recruits people from this land, uses this new army to conquer more land, and so on. The IMS's position in Syria also strengthens the movement's position in Iraq, leading to a massive offensive operation by IMS in mid-2014. They would attack Iraqis in the north, pressuring them against the Kurdish Protestant of Peshmerga, and capturing many territories in the west bank of the Tigris River. IMS would then launch an offensive against government positions in the sparsely populated desert settlements in the west, and holding control over the entirety of the Syria-Iraq border. Speaking of Syria, IMS troops would face against Syrian rebels in the eastern Syria region, eventually expelling the FSA from the east and forcing them back to their outposts in northern and southern Syria. IMS would then launch attacks against the Kurds in Rojava and government troops in southern Syria, implying an up-and-coming offensive towards the capital of Damascus to topple Assad's government once and for all. At this point, in May 2015, the IMS was at its highest territorial extent, ruling over a population of 12 million people and accumulating over $2 billion in assets. Since their involvement in the Syrian Civil War, they had yet to suffer a single major defeat, were on the outskirts of Baghdad, reaching near Damascus, had connections and networks across multiple nations all over the world, and seemed truly unstoppable, like God himself was on their side until Kobani happened.